breaking their necks to get next to me. Stutter around, who next, who he, cuddling like sex to me. Ooh, we, them exes can't get it, all want it. Shout out to the Rolling Stones, can't call it. Body perfect, like the love of God. One objectified, gotta cut him off. Pop, bang, bang like Chitty. Number one, representing head the itty bitty titty committee. No silicone, pretty dog. Holla like them, my pretty girls.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for being here today. Before we begin, we are offering some Spanish interpretation for those that need it. So I'll go ahead and pass the mic over to Ana, who's going to share some instructions.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ana. Hola, buenas tardes. Me llamo Ana. Voy a ser su intérprete este día. Si ustedes gustan escuchar este seminario en español, lo que tienen que hacer es, una vez yo termine de darle la explicación, van a ver que aparece en el fondo de su pantalla un icono del globo mundial que dice interpretación. Le dan clic, eligen español. Tienen la opción de poder poner mute original audio. Y si ustedes eligen eso, solo van a escuchar a la intérprete. Si no, escuchan al intérprete a un 20%, perdón, 80% y al ponente principal a un 20%. Si ustedes están uniéndose a este evento por medio de un teléfono o un iPad, tienen que ir a los 3 puntitos al final que dicen More, eligen interpretación, eligen su idioma y es bien importante que al final le den Done o Listo. Muchísimas gracias. We're ready.
Thank you, Ana. We are also offering closed captioning. If you'd like that option, go ahead and click on the 3 dots that say More on the Zoom toolbar, and then select closed captions. And this will turn on the closed captions for you. So let me introduce myself. My name is Perla Vanessa Barraza. I'm the Narrative Change and Applied Stories Project Manager. I'm a formerly undocumented fronteriza mexicana coming from Tucson, Arizona. I've been in the Bay for 6 years, and I come to this work as an actress, a theater artist, and a former community organizer.
Hey everyone, my name is Maura Persh and I'm the Narrative Change and Applied Stories Project Senior Specialist. I'm a 5th generation Irish American from the Midwest, Wisconsin and Minnesota, currently based in Hawaii. And I come to this work as a poet. So I've been a spoken word artist and educator for almost 20 years now. And I've been working with You Speaks for pretty much that entire time. So very grateful to be here today. And I'm going to be on a lot of the Q&A and chat with everyone as well.
Awesome. Hey, folks, honored to be here with you all today. My name is Kat Ibasco, and I'm the Narrative Change and Applied Story Specialist at You Speaks. I'm also an immigrant from the Philippines and currently based in Los Angeles, California. I'm coming to you as a theater artist, a filmmaker, a cultural strategist, and a creative entrepreneur. Now, we are so very excited to meet you all here today, and we thank you for co-creating this webinar space with us. I see that folks have already started putting their intros in the chat, but I have another request if you could put your name. And we also want to know what your arts discipline is and what fellowship tier you're applying to in the chat. And so we have that request in the chat there. Again, your name, what's your arts discipline, and what fellowship tier are you applying to? And if you don't know what tier yet, that's totally okay. We just want to get a sense of who's in the room with us today. While you're doing that, I'll go ahead and just give you a brief background about You Speaks. So You Speaks' mission is to create spaces that challenge youth to develop and amplify their voices as creators of societal change. Now, a new initiative of You Speaks is the Power Lab, and it's an umbrella of programs where this fellowship sits. It's where we focus on cultural organizing and narrative change and the power of artists to change the world. And with that, we want to thank you so much for sharing your info in the chat. And again, thank you for being here today to learn more about this fellowship.
Awesome. Again, thank you for adding your name and what tier you're planning to apply for. I'm very excited to see your application. Now that you know a little bit about us, we just want to share more about the program, and I'll start by going over today's agenda. Today, we'll cover the program's purpose, eligibility requirements, the different fellowship tiers, We'll do an overview of the timeline, fellowship expectations, and the review criteria. Then we'll go in depth into the application itself, and we'll also leave room for questions and answers at the end. So we're going to go ahead and turn off the chat. I think we have a few more names coming in, but we're going to go ahead and turn off the chat. And if you have any questions, again, please put those in the Q&A box. So the California Arts Council Youth Speaks Individual Artist Fellowship. It's a long name. So, we'll just call it the IAF, or Individual Artist Fellowship. So the California Artists Council, or CAC, created this program because it recognized the few opportunities for individual artists to apply for funding, and even fewer opportunities for artists and culture bearers' achievements to be recognized. So the Individual Artist Fellowship, or IAF, program really aims to recognize, uplift, and celebrate the excellence of California artists and culture bearers practicing any art form, with unrestricted grants ranging from $5,000 to $50,000. So the California Arts Council first awarded this grant back in 2021. This time, however, the process is a little different in that CAC has partnered with different organizations to help re-grant and distribute these funds across the 4 regions within California. So Youth Speaks is the administering organization for specifically Region 4. We're serving 35 counties in Northern California, and the counties are highlighted here. They are the light green screen. Oh, are we having some tech issues on the slide deck? Thank you. Here we go. They're the lighter pink counties on the screen. And you can also find them in our program guidelines, and we're gonna add them to the chat. Yes, added to the chat as well. So every organization was given guidelines on how to administer the fellowship and award the grants. And we all have the same eligibility requirements, but with a slightly different fellowship application, review process, and of course, a different review panel. So please check out the CAC website to learn more about the other 3 regions' individual artist fellowship. You can check out who they awarded in the different tiers. And of course, CAC is always sharing funding opportunities. So that's where you want to check out those funding opportunities. Actually, Max, if you could take it back a slide, back to the eligibility requirements. Thank you so much. Okay, so to be eligible for this fellowship, you must be a California-based artist or culture bearer creating art for change. You must live in Region 4, and you must be 18 years of age and older. So sometimes we get the question, your organization is named Youth Speaks. Does that mean that I need to be a youth to apply? What is the age requirement? So we just want to make sure it's clear. For this specific opportunity, you must be 18 years of age or older to apply. And finally, recipients of the 2021 California Arts Council IAF program are not eligible to apply at this time. And so we have a link of all the past fellows. You can go ahead and check your name if you think you might have received that award back in 2021. So the fellowship provides 3 different tiers of funding based on the category an artist self-selects into. So you may only select one tier, but the review panel has the discretion of moving an artist to a different tier if we feel their application would be more competitive in that tier. So the first category is the Emerging Artist Fellow Award, and this is a $5,000 award. Emerging artists are those in the beginning stages of making their work public and are engaging their larger community in their practice. Individuals at this career stage may have had a few public showings, but they don't have ongoing resources or support yet. Established Artist Fellow Award is a $10,000 award. Artists in the established tier regularly make their work public and engage the larger community in their practice. One big difference between a emerging artist and an established artist is that an established artist, these individuals can give multiple examples of artistic and or cultural works that have made significant social impact. And then finally, we have the Legacy Artist Fellow Award. So this is a $50,000 award. Artists in the legacy tier can point to a significant body of work produced over a substantial period of time that has engaged their communities and that has made significant social impact. One key difference between an established artist and a legacy artist is that a legacy artist is able to point to emerging and established artists that they have mentored or otherwise positively influenced. So you can only select one tier based on where you think you are in the process. A question we get about the tiers is whether the funding is dictated by the age of the recipient. We want to make clear that no, awards are not dictated by age. So an award tier designation is determined based on where you as the artist or culture bearer are in the various stages of your artistic practice. And we really encourage each of you to review the descriptions and just thoroughly determine which best represents your own unique practice at the time of submission. And that was quite a bit. Again, you can read those descriptions on our website. The application officially opened on August 7th, and we have had, we have 3 application webinars planned. Our last webinar of the series is Friday, September 15th at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We will also be adding a recording of this webinar onto the USpeaks YouTube page, and we're going to share that directly with all of you in a follow-up email early next week. The application closes on September 30th at 11:59 Pacific Standard Time. So please make sure you click on that submit button when you go to submit your application. You can make edits once you've submitted your application. To do this, you can do it through the submittable platform. And then we on the other end will unlock it for you, allowing you to make any other changes necessary. And then just remember to submit your application prior to the deadline, because we cannot review the application unless it has been resubmitted. Then we'll take the month of October to review all applications, and we'll send out notifications to awardees in late October. We'll make the official fellowship announcement November 1st, and then the fellowship starts on November 1st, 2023, and ends on September 30th, 2024. Awarded grantees must comply with all requirements as stipulated in the grant agreement, including but not limited to the following. So complete your contract documents, participate and maintain communication with USpeaks throughout the duration of the fellowship. So we'll have you participate in some program activities, and this will be really a great chance to meet the other fellows. Create thank you letters to better inform our elected representatives, and a final report, which sounds serious, but really is just a one-page narrative sharing what the fellowship meant to you and your community. And applications from individual artists and culture bearers will be reviewed by USpeaks and panel members in various parts of California. So excellence for the purpose of this grant is defined as an artist's unique artistic vision, their ongoing commitment to creative practice, and engagement with and their impact on the larger cultural ecosystem. To break that down a little bit more, and you'll see this again on our website and the application. Creative vision, artists are effectively communicating their personal story, artistic medium or practice, and long-term aspirations for their work. Aesthetic excellence means that the artistic work and our examples of cultural practice demonstrates strong alignment with the components of the attribute of excellence in arts for change. So you can see the link of this resource in the chat. Go ahead and click on it, read through it. There are some very specific examples of how other artists are creating art for change. And then finally, we have community engagement and social impact. So artists are effectively communicating their engagement with their communities, the positive social impact their work has had either locally, regionally, and or statewide, addressing themes included but not limited to race, diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, etc. And our review panelists will review and rank applications, identifying final cohorts that represent the diversity of Region 4's arts, landscape, and geography. So they'll be using this 100-point scale, with 100 points being the highest score an application can receive. All right,
Thank
and now,
you.
go ahead, Kat. I was just about to pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Perla, for that overview. Now that we went through the overview with Perla, I'll go dive into the actual application itself. Now, within the application, we'll be asking you about your artistic process through an artist narrative statement, as well as 2 short response questions. We also ask for at least 3 work samples, a 1-page resume or CV, and 1 letter of support or testimonial. And we estimate that the application will take roughly about 2 to 3 hours to complete. So make sure you block your time. The other thing to note is that you can save your application and go back to it. So if you don't have that time blocked off, there is time for you to save it, go back into it. But again, like Perla said, make sure you submit it before the deadline. Okay, now Submittable is the application platform we are using. You'll need to create an account through Submittable in order to access the application. Now, you don't have to create a new account if you already have a Submittable account. Submittable will automatically save your progress and allow you to continue making edits until you submit your application. One best tip is the app platform actually works best on Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and Internet Explorer is not supported. Okay, so now about the artist narrative, let's go through one of the questions in there. In your artist narrative, we want to hear about you, your art, your medium, your practice, why you create art, and your long-term aspiration and goals for yourself. The artist narrative can be submitted as a written response or a video. For written responses, word counts are listed as a suggested maximum of 500 words for the artist statement and 300 words per the questions we're asking. We want to suggest focusing on the quality of response versus length. We encourage you to keep your answers simple and concise and direct. There is no expectation or weight given to lengthy responses. So if you're submitting a video response, upload your video response to YouTube as unlisted and add the link in Submittable. There are 2 short response questions that we ask you to write no more than 3 words per question. Now, the first question is, describe how you engage your local community in your art making. How does your art practice include social and cultural change practice? With this question, we're asking you to be specific as to how you engage your community and what you feel is the positive social impact of your work. We want to know what local, regional, or statewide issues you're working on addressing in your work. That can include race, diversity, equity, inclusion, climate, accessibility, right? And then the second question we ask is, how would these funds support you and your arts practice? What impact will this fellowship have on your artistic career? So given that these are unrestricted funds, we just want to hear how those funds are being used and how it's impacting your arts practice and your plans. We're more interested in the impact of the funds versus requiring you to connect these funds to a specific project or providing a budget. If you want to provide that, that's great, but it's not required for this application. Again, we're asking you to be succinct and thoughtful by capping the word limit to 300 words for those questions. All right, now let's move to the work samples. You're also asked to upload at least 3 work samples of past or current projects that give the evaluators a sense of your arts practice and discipline. Now, this could be in different combinations, right? So for writing samples, there's a maximum of 10 pages that you could submit, and that could be short stories, scripts, poetry, musical scores, right? Or you could also submit images or renderings with a maximum of 10 images. For an artist who is a playwright, this could look like submitting 3 work samples. So these are some examples, right? If you're a playwright, you could maybe submit 5 pages of a completed script. Your second sample could be 4 pages of a scene or another script. And your third sample could maybe be a 1-page outline or draft so that you have a total of 10 pages. So just remember, your cap is 10 pages. For video and audio files, we're asking for no longer than 5 minutes in length, right? And you're going to upload your video directly or link your video on YouTube. Please ensure that it's unlisted and non-password protected so our viewers can access your video. For an artist who's a musician, a singer, their 3 samples could look like maybe 1 minute long song. You could also maybe do a 2-minute song and another 2-minute song. It could be, you could also do maybe 5 minutes of a song and provide a written sample of the lyrics to the next song, right? So there's a way for you to get creative around this, but there are parameters. So just make sure you know that the video audios are capped at 5 minutes and are anything written or visual renderings are capped at 10 pages. We also know artists can work in multiple mediums. So you're also welcome to mix and match the work samples in media. For example, if you're an artist that's both a performer and visual artist, you could submit the following work samples. It could be a 2-minute long video of your performance or dance, and you could also submit a slide deck with 5 mural images. Just make sure to have captions and descriptions for your work samples. Now the next part is the resume. We're asking you to do a 1-page resume and CV, and we encourage you to see this as an additional tool for storytelling. Hopefully it highlights and complements what you've stated in your artist narrative. And you could add links, but we guarantee that we can't guarantee that the reviewers are going to be clicking through them. For your letter of support, we need a letter of support from a person or organization who is familiar with you and your work. So anyone that you've collaborated with that can speak to your work. And you'll be uploading the letter directly into the application on Submittable as well. That was a lot. So I know this can feel technical, but we want to let you know that if you need technical support preparing your application, Submittable has a great tech team. And if you have other program-related questions, you can always email us at powerlab@uspeaks.org, and we'll put that in the chat. The other thing too to note is that we have designated office hours every Wednesday at 1 p.m. And we're dropping the form in the chat if you want to schedule time to do a one-on-one. You can go ahead and do that and sign up for office hours. All right, now that we've gone through the bulk of the application, I want to ask you, and we're going to move into a Q&A. But before we start our Q&A, we want to drop a survey. So this survey is completely anonymous and it has no bearing on your application, right? Its purpose is to help us track our reach and reporting of this webinar, ensuring that we continue to offer future opportunities like this to inspiring artists. Your input is truly invaluable, and it only takes a few moments for you to fill that out right now as well. So we just added that link to the survey to the chat. It takes 5 minutes. Great. So we'll start the Q&A. And then also just a heads up, we also have an FAQ page on our website. So if there's any questions, we're also capturing that and updating it after each webinar too. So if you want to look at that, see if your question's already been answered through that. Otherwise, please use the Q&A function to add your questions. All right. So the first question is, please give some examples of artists in each tier, especially the first 2. It's so vague and up to interpretation. It's true, right? Like you are self-determining what tier you're in. So the question, Perla, is, can you explain the difference between emerging and established tiers?
Yeah, great question. Yes, we're leaving this to you to decide. So this is kind of why we're keeping it vague. But an emerging artist is maybe somebody who's just starting out, or who isn't maybe like the art for change, like maybe they're doing community organizing, or some of that hasn't like fully bridged over to their artwork yet. So that's what I think maybe some of the differences between that emerging and established. So emerging's just starting out, established is an established artist, right? They have more work out there, and they've made that connection between creating art for change and yeah, I hope that answers that question.
I think that was good. And if you want to follow up with us, please email us or join us for our office hours. The other question is, will this be recorded and available to watch another time? Yes, this is being recorded, and you will actually receive an email of the link to the YouTube. Otherwise, you could go to USpeak's YouTube channel to watch it as well and share it with your network. All right, the next question related to tiers. Established tiers defined as significant social impact. Oh, they just want to know what's significant. How is that defined? Is there a number of years or other ways to define that? What is a and then, yeah, we'll go with that one. So established tiers defined as significant. How is that? What is significant defined by? And is there a number of years or other ways to define this?
You get to define that. So bear with us. I know that can be a little frustrating. Again, we're keeping it vague. But I would encourage you to check out the Attributes of Excellence resource. Again, that's the resource we're going to be using as the panel is going to be using as they review. And so there's some clear examples in there of what maybe a legacy artist would look like. I wouldn't say that it's defined by this exact number of years, right? This is why we're not saying this is not age dictated. Again, you get to decide which tier you think best represents you and your work. And you're trying to make that case, right? So that's why we're leaving it up to you.
Awesome. All right, the next question is related to application strength. How do you determine what makes one application stronger than another? Do you have past examples of panel discussions that have come up?
We don't have examples of panel discussions, only because this is the first time that we are administering this grant. That's why I do encourage you to maybe check out some of the other fellowships, individual artist fellows, and see, what they've submitted. Any thoughts on that, Kat?
I think just being, if the clarity of your application will help a lot. Like if we clearly understand your arts background, what you're making, what your goals are, that helps a lot. And again, with the social impact, like any collaborations that you've done that can help demonstrate, the three categories that Perla described. The clarity and conciseness of your answers will really help us with that, and your CV as well, and work samples. So everything as a whole, really, as long as they're all speaking to the strength of you as an artist, is what's going to make your application strong. All right, now we have a question on work samples. On the website, it says we should submit at least 3 work samples, but in the listed example, it says one of the work samples is a slide deck of images. Does each image count as its own work sample, or is it okay to submit a slide deck with lots of images and count as one work sample? That's one question. Let's go one question at a time. How about that question, Perla?
Yeah, that's just an example that we were trying to give folks. So like if you had 10 images that you're submitting, one format that you could use would be to add those images onto a slide deck, add a description, and that could be the way you upload. That could be your 10 samples, right? Or you could upload your samples individually. So we're really leaving that up to you on what kind of files and what kind of format that's going to be. Again, that's just one example of how someone could upload those images.
Cool. The follow-up question is, if we mix written and video for work sample, how many pages written and how many minutes total for video maximum? So the question is, can we submit 10 images and a 5-minute audio?
No. So this is where you're going to try to like keep the ratio, right? So if you submit about like 5 images or pages, then don't submit more than 2.5 video audio or video file. So we're going to leave that up to you, but don't go over that 10 image or that 5-minute video altogether. And I think we do have an example in there of what that could look like for folks who are working with multiple mediums or are, you know, multidisciplinary artists. So check out our FAQs because there is an example there of that.
Awesome. And then the follow-up is, I'm a game developer. What type of file should I submit for my work samples? Videos, screenshots? With the games I develop personally, create narrative writing, music, art, design, and game design. Can I link? Yeah. What samples can they submit if they're a game developer?
That's a great question. And also, I'm just so excited about the different artists that are like going to come in the different applications. So I'm excited to hear you're a video game designer. But I think this goes back to you. We leave that up to you. What is going to be the best way for you to tell your story? What is going to be the best way for you to showcase your work, but still connect it to your artistic narrative? So we have multiple ways. We're accepting multiple types of files. So check out the application. If you're seeing that the type of file you want to upload is not there, email us at PowerLab, and then we can maybe talk through that.
Awesome. The other question is, can I use a link to my website for video samples, or does it have to be a YouTube link?
Good question. I think you technically could link to something outside of YouTube. I just want to say that if you're linking to a video that's like 10 minutes long, we can't promise that we're going to be watching all of that, you know, like more than 10 minutes long, or like your website may have way more resources, I mean, work samples than we actually want to see. So it might not be as cohesive, or so I think submitting it in the application and making sure that it's very clear for us, I would suggest that rather than linking to your website directly. I hope that makes sense.
Cool. Another question on the samples, last one on the work samples. Can I submit 9 pictures and 1 video of a painting in progress, explaining what steps are in progress and are to come?
I feel like 9 images to like 1 video is still a lot. So I would try to take down the images, maybe just to, you know, keep it fair, that 1, other folks are sticking to those parameters, and 2, we do have a review panel that's going to spend time reviewing your applications, and that does take time. So we just want to, again, try to stick to those parameters if you can, the best that you can.
So next question is on the CV and resume. What is relevant to include on the CV or resume?
That's a great question. I think, again, we are leaving this up to you. We are advising you to use this as a storytelling tool. So what is it that you want us to know? Whether that's the more relevant work that you've been doing, or maybe you've been working, you know, not just locally, but also like nationally, and maybe that's an opportunity to talk about that there as well. So leaving that up to you. What do you want the panel to know about you?
Cool. And then there's a follow-up with that, which is, as an Indigenous culture bearer, what does a CV look like? And it looks like there's a question on, do we include ceremonies, gatherings, right? Because they're different than exhibits. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we leave that up to you. So if that means adding ceremonies, that's up to you. We also know that maybe like for an emerging artist, they might not have some public showing. So maybe their resume is going to look a little bit different than a legacy artist too, right? So what you feel that is going to be you know, the work that you're doing outside of your art could maybe also go in there depending on whether where you're at in the tiers. Yeah, what do you think, Kat?
And I think what I'd add to that is for our Indigenous culture bearers, anything that shows us how you practice, you know, whatever cultural practice you are sharing or doing. So for example, I know of cultural bearers who are focused on food and restoring our relationship back to the land, right? And maybe the sample is, you know, a menu that you've created that is that is around Indigenous diets and nutrition. Maybe you could post images of a gathering that you created if you're doing rituals or ceremonies or prayers. If you're a musician and practice any kind of drumming or anything, like videos of you doing that too, and how long you've been doing that kind of work in your community helps us understand more too. All right, the other question we have is, how does the artist county of residence impact selection? Is there a quota for artists per county?
I wouldn't say we have an exact quota. I think what we're trying to do is to ensure that all the counties know about this opportunity. So we're really pushing, you know, to get this fellowship opportunity out to all the counties. But it's going to be based off of that ranking scale. So yeah.
Can literary magazines can literary magazines apply?
Yes, I think if that's the way that you create art, then yes.
And so what I'll say too is that emphasize on individual artists, right? So if you're doing a magazine and you're working with other folks, we just want to make sure that you're centering your application around you and your arts practice as part of the literary magazine.
Thanks for clarifying that. Yes.
Yeah. The other question is, will you also have a quota for how many in each tier?
I think we're trying to do at least one for each tier, depending on what the applications that we receive, you know, for each tier. We're going to move that funding around. So we don't have exact numbers yet.
Cool. And the question on the letter of rec, as someone applying in the legacy tier, I have more than one person I could approach for the letter. Can you tell me whose endorsement you weigh most heavily? Former students, peer collaborators, artistic leaders / gatekeepers?
Yes. So for this, we're saying whoever's going to write the best letter, right? Person who knows you and your work, and it just comes down to that letter. Who's going to be able to talk about what you're doing and really talk about it. Yeah, just do it well. So we're not like suggesting one way or another, or one profession or another. It's whoever knows you and your work the best.
Awesome. The other questions we have, are there any restrictions on the artist's narrative video submission? How long should it be? Should it strictly stick to responding to the question verbally?
Yes, I think we said, sorry, I'm gonna just make sure I get that exact number correct, because we do have parameters for that artist narrative video as well. And we said a 2-minute maximum video. So try to stick to that parameter. Yes, please answer the question. And if you don't want to do it through video, you could do the 500-word artist statement instead.
Great. And the other question is, can these funds be used for anything? A down payment for a house?
Yes.
A car?
Yes, anything. Yes, which is, I mean, that's so exciting about this opportunity, right? Is like you can literally use it for anything, and you don't have to, you know, provide proof to us of how you used it. I mean, we want to know what the impact of the funds were, but you don't need to like be like, these are the receipts. No, anything you want.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right, next question. Can tech help me find the link for where is the link for the attribute of excellence from our FAQs?
Yes. Can we link that again in the in the chat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I believe that link is also on the website. Yes.
Yes.
So attribute for artistic excellence. All right, next question. Can you better explain how someone submitting images and a video, how we can figure out how long the video per how many image ratio?
Yeah, I think my example of like maybe you're submitting 5 images with like a description of what's on the image, and then you have maybe a 2.5-minute video. So that would be like 50-50 ratio there.
And then also, can I make a video of photos from various plays? Let's say 10 photos that would create a 30-second video. I'm creative.
Yeah, I mean, the work samples are up to you and how you want to display what you are doing. So yeah, you could definitely do that. 30 seconds of that would be great.
All right. The other one is if we apply for a certain tier, but you think we're a better fit for another, you'll move us towards the other tier, right? Can we clarify that?
Yeah, so if we think your application or the panel review thinks your application might be better suited or more competitive in a different tier, we're going to move you to that tier. If you don't want that to happen, feel free to email us and we can make sure we flag your application. But that just, if we think you might have a better chance of getting a different funding amount, we might move you there.
Got it. Okay, another question we have is my arts practice is primarily curatorial. My work is showcased via exhibition and public forums. Can you speak to the viability of curator applications and what type of work samples would be acceptable?
That's a great question. I think going back to kind of what you said, Kat, earlier about like you still want to emphasize yourself as an individual artist. So maybe I think we could maybe think through this. So maybe we could spend some time during office hours to kind of check in about that and what that could look like.
Right. And again, like I would say for that, really breaking down your creative practice as a curator. I know, like even if you're not the arts practitioner, curation is an art form in itself, right? So if you could speak to that, that would be great. And if you have maybe flyers or images from an exhibit that you've done, that can be a work sample as well. And maybe for your art recommendation letter, an artist that you've curated into a show and how that's impacted them, right? So that's one way to look at curation. All right, next question is, what if an applicant is more so a culture bearer and has appeared in a Netflix and other movies about Indigenous foodways, ceremonies, etc.? How do we show the panel this work history?
That's awesome. First of all, that's like amazing. I think if you can take some clips of that, that would be one, like that could be a work sample. Yeah, I think there's like many ways that you could do that. So I don't know if you want to give like specific ideas, Kat, on how to do that besides like maybe taking some of that.
Yeah,
videos.
I mean, I'd imagine that you'd have that in your CV as well, like listed, like featured on Netflix documentary, and it might also be written in your personal narrative as well. But you definitely, like, this is the time to show off the shiny things, and let us know what all the amazing work you've done and the reach you've had as an artist. So that's all amazing. The next question is regarding the CV. Do you request a purely arts-based CV? What if our work overlaps? What if our work overlaps with artist work and professional work as well?
I think that's totally okay. We understand that folks are trying to create a positive social impact through many and different avenues. So it's not just through your art. So that's totally fine if that's something you want to add there.
You know, a lot of our artists also have other gigs, right? And are working, a lot of folks work in communities or organizations. And I know as artists, we see some overlap there. So speaking to that, I think also helps your application. So don't worry if it's not like a purely artist-based CV, but we do want to see your arts practice, right? Can undocumented artists apply? I love this question.
Yes, please do apply. Yeah, this is one of those opportunities that is open to undocumented folks. And if you have more questions about that, again, feel free to email us. But yes, please encourage other undocumented artists to apply as well.
Awesome. And now it says, I heard you say a resume CV was supposed to be 1 page. Yep, let's stick to 1 page, but the application doesn't state a page or word limit. Can you clarify?
Yes, we know that it's not specifically there, but yes, please keep it to 1 page. This also goes for your letter of support. We're asking for 250 words to 500 words max. Really, that's like 1 page, double-sided. So please just remember that, we have a review panel that are going to take their time to review your application. So try your best to be concise and clear and showcase the things that you think best represent you and your artistic practice.
Awesome. Next one. I work with a community producing fashion shows, but I also travel the world walking in fashion shows. Should I include work samples, i.e. videos and pictures of both?
You definitely can. Like we said, we know that folks are multidisciplinary artists, so it just depends on whether you want to highlight one of your art practices more than the other or both. So we leave that up to you.
Okay, I have a kind of a series of questions here. One is, will everyone be informed on November 1st if they were chosen or not?
You will get basically, if you haven't received, yes, by November 1st, everyone will know whether they got accepted or not accepted. Yes.
Mm-hmm. When and how will funds be distributed?
They will be distributed directly to the individual artist or culture bearer. We can talk more about the process once folks are selected. But again, those just will go all in one directed to that person. So that's $50,000 that's coming to you in your bank account right away. So yeah.
And that's pretty much in November, right? Once
Yes.
the announce, then you start the process of distributing the funds.
Yes.
Cool. This question came up again. How many people will be selected per tier? Again, the question is, we don't have a set amount of how many folks will be in each tier. We have a pool of $740,000 that we want to be able to distribute as equitably as possible.
Yeah.
So there's different considerations as well, including location, right? And where you're at. Let me see here. I work in community on different types of projects. Should I submit letters of recommendation from each type of project?
No, you only want one letter of recommendation. Yes. I would say that, like, if you don't have, maybe you're just starting out and you're an emerging artist and maybe you don't have that many work samples, you could possibly add a second one there as an additional sample, but really stick to that 1 page in that CV section.
Cool. Is there a time frame of when art samples need to have taken place, like within the last 3 years or 10, etc., 20, etc.?
I think that there's a global pandemic that happened, so we know that some folks had to kind of take a pause. So there isn't like a time frame. Again, we leave that up to you and the story that you're trying to tell. So that could be either the most recent, or maybe you're painting the story of all the different years of work that you've done, right? So leave that up to you.
Great. As a writer, would it be better to submit 3 short excerpts totaling 10 pages or 1 complete short story under 10 pages?
I think we want at least three work samples. So each few pages would be a different sample. So if you just submitted 10 pages of one writing, I would consider that one work sample.
All right. What does the fellowship involve regarding participation?
Kat, do you want to jump on this one?
Yeah, so like we mentioned, there's a couple of requirements like writing representatives to make sure we have money like this coming and resources. We want to make sure that we have these opportunities again, but we also, as you speak, we want to provide opportunities for fellows to get to know each other, as well as provide some artistic and professional development opportunities. So there will be some engagements that's optional for you to come to. I highly suggest it. Again, as artists, you know, we don't like silos, right? Like we want to be collaborative. We want to get to know what other people are doing. Also, side note, this is also about collective power building, right? This is how we build power as artists in California. So just want to encourage folks to participate when opportunities come up. All right, next one is, will someone getting the established someday be eligible for legacy? If you can continue to do that, so for what I think it's saying is for future, if I apply for an established this year, maybe 3 years from now, am I eligible to apply for a legacy?
Don't have a yes or no for that because you know, this is the first time that we're administering the grant. Hopefully we get to do it again, and so CAC is actually who gets to decide what those eligibility requirements are. So I would still, you know, check in to see if we do this again, or even if CAC does it themselves, like checking that website and just seeing and reading through the eligibility requirements again.
Awesome. I think that's all our questions. Do we have any more questions? We are closing, we're getting to the top of the hour here. Just want to see if there's any more last minute questions before we close out. Okay, another question just came through. To clarify, one article equals one page, question mark? So is that a work sample question? Yeah, for the work sample. You could submit an article, but again, your article could be up to 10 pages, but we want you to be able to diversify a little bit in your work sample. So it could be multiple pages and something else. But again, your max for any written samples is 10 pages.
And that's all together. I just want to clarify that. So that's not one work sample is 10 pages. That's you only have 10 pages to submit at least 3 samples. So that could be, you know, 3 articles, or that could be 10 articles that are 1 page. So that we leave that up to you on how you want to submit that.
Great. All right. I think that's it for Q&A. Perla, do you want to go over our next webinar?
Yes. So as I shared before, we do have one last webinar coming up. This is September 15th at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Please invite your friends to register for this webinar if they haven't been able to make the other 2, and just get the word out on this like awesome opportunity. Like how often is there like all these funds that you can do whatever you want to do? Like, let's share this opportunity, especially with folks outside of the Bay Area who might not know USpeaks, who might not be as connected. So, you know, sharing is caring. Please share this opportunity with other folks. So again, that next webinar is coming up. You can use the link in the chat to register.
Awesome. And then one last reminder, I know I brought up a survey before the Q&A, bringing it back up again. We just want to get to know who you all are. Again, we want to continue to do this and show that there's a demand for this type of support for artists in California. So please complete the survey, which we just dropped in the chat. It'll take less than 5 minutes, for real. With that, we just want to thank you so much for sharing space with us and attending this. We look forward to reviewing your application. Again, if you want to reach out to us, you can contact us at powerlab@uspeaks.org or join us for our next webinar or our office hours. And everything is also on our website, so make sure to check out uspeaks.org. Thank you all so much.
Understanding microphone mathematics. Bucka. You know the deal. Microphone mathematics.